Turn the fucking click off. And away we go. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of MMA Mat Chat. I am Fabian Stewart and I just decided let's do an MMA podcast because there's not enough of those going around. So I thought let's do one more. Nobody knows who I am. No one's going to listen to this, but I thought, how do I get this dream started? Well, I just get my microphone set up, get the video going, and off we go. So we're welcome if you're listening, which is probably no one. So I can kind of do what I want here. If you are listening to this, if you did tune in, well, please leave a comment because I'm 100% going to read it. So a good return on investment on that for you. Today we are going to preview UFC 291, which is happening this weekend. It is headlined by Dustin Poirier versus Gaethje for the BMF belt, which nobody needs and nobody asked for. It was stupid the first time they did it. Dana said it's never coming back. It's a one and done, and here we are with Dana going against his word, which has never happened before. Anyway, let's get into it. Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. 5-round main event for the BMF title. Well, this is a good fight. It's going to be a fun fight. Dustin Poirier is a seasoned vet. He's got great striking, great wrestling, and Justin Gaethje just loves to fight, and everybody knows that, and that's why everybody loves watching his fights. He will go in there, he will kick the legs, he will swing for the fences with every single shot. His coach will tell him undoubtedly between rounds to stop trying to take his fucking their opponent's head off, and it should be a fun fight. Dustin Poirier coming in as a favorite, $1.65. Justin Gaethje $2.25. This is not Vegas odds. This is in the dollar system. I don't know what it's called. It's what everybody outside of America does, and it's so much easier to understand. Dustin Poirier is paying $1.65. If there are any Americans listening, you put $1 on them, you get $1.65 back. Justin Gaethje is paying $2.25. You put $1 on, you get $2.25 back. It's that simple. The American or the Vegas odds system is utterly ridiculous. It makes you do maths to work out what's going on. It forces you to think about if you spend $100. So I'm sure there's something subconsciously there that makes you spend more, and that's why they continue to do it. But Dustin Poirier as the favorite, which is understandable. In my opinion, I think this fight can play out one of two ways, and it's all on Dustin Poirier. Everybody knows Justin Gaethje's weakness is his wrestling, and that's why the UFC matches him with other lightweights who don't want to wrestle him. And Dustin Poirier has great jiu-jitsu, he's got great wrestling, and I think he can take it to the ground if he wants to. Now, if Dustin Poirier decides to make this a kickboxing fight, it could be anybody's fight because Justin Gaethje is lethal on the feet. But if Dustin Poirier decides, I'm going to take this to the ground, I think there's a good chance he can submit Gaethje pretty easily. You know, probably take his back, get a rear naked choke in, and that'll be it. But maybe Gaethje gets in his head at the press conferences and Dustin Poirier wants to trade with him. And if that happens, it's anybody's fight. I think Dustin Poirier is a sharper puncher. He's more likely to land more sniper shots than Justin Gaethje, who's just going to go out there with his chin up, kick the legs, and swing for the fences. But it's the real winner here will be the fans, because that sounds fantastic. And I don't see it going 5 rounds. If they decide to make it that kind of fight, I can't see how it goes 5 rounds. If it's anything like their first fight, that it won't go 5 rounds. But Dustin Poirier, he's getting a bit older now. He's probably smarter, and I think he'll wrestle him. I think he'll hold him up in clinches, and he'll try to take it to the ground. And Gaethje's not the fighter that he was the first time they fought. He's a lot smarter now. He's not as reckless. He's definitely not as reckless. that Gaethje before he got stopped against Alvarez and Poirier was just reckless and would throw everything 100%. And he's a bit more measured now. So, yeah, it should be a fun fight. And I can't wait to see that one. But my money's on Poirier, but I don't know shit, so don't listen to me. Prior to that, in the co-main, we have Jan Blachowicz and Alex Pereira. And Jan Blachowicz, I want to say Blachowicz, but I think it's Blachowicz. $1.85 to Alex Pereira, $2. Very even odds. And I saw an interesting article earlier about how Jan Blachowicz, in any fight he hasn't shot a takedown in, he's won the striking. When it hasn't gone to the ground, he's won all the striking. And I think people sleep on his striking a little bit because he's such a big guy and he does like to wrestle, and because he mixed it up against Adesanya and wrestled him in round 4 and 5 and won that fight. But I am surprised that the odds are so even, because I think Jan Blachowicz, if he's smart, will just wrestle him from the fucking 1 minute into the fight. Alex Pereira, he got a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He is a kickboxer, and he has not been tested in the wrestling department. Yes, he's a former champion, but he was only a former champion because of Adesanya. And my microphone is slipping. And yeah, I think if he wants to, he should wrestle him, and he can easily. And Pereira, well, he's turning into a bit of a fan favorite. He has deadly hands, a deadly left hook, great kicks. Everybody knows his striking is sensational. He's got good knees from the clinch, but it's all gonna come down to, again, whether Jan wrestles. Pardon me. I got a bit of a sore throat. It's a bad week to start my first podcast, but here we are. Yeah, that should be a fun fight. Jan Blachowicz coming off a pretty, I don't want to say mediocre. It wasn't mediocre. It was a good fight. It was a good showing. It was just mediocre in the fans' point of view and in Dana White's point of view. But his fight with Ankalaev, and I'm surprised that they haven't just made this for the interim lightweight, which would, they throw you these interim belts up all the time. And they've had interim belts put on the line for less than this. But with the light heavyweight champion in, Jamal Hill. In Jamal Hill vacating his belt 2 weeks ago because of his torn his ACL. But I believe playing a celebrity basketball game before the UFC pay-per-view 2 weeks ago. Make this for the interim. Jan fought for the title in his last fight and it was a draw. So make this for the interim. I don't see why not. And then Pereira will be in rare spot in the history books to have fought 3 fights and 2 for the title in such a quick succession in his UFC career. But the fans will be happy to see. And who else are you going to do after this? Let's say either one of them wins. They fight Ankalaev. You do Blachowicz and Ankalaev again, or Pereira and Ankalaev. That's not going to go well, I don't think. He's definitely going to wrestle him. Put the belt on the line. Make it fun. Why not? I guess they can't, because then that would have to be the main event, because you couldn't have an actual belt on the line and then have this silly BMF belt as the headline event. But it's an interim. And the interim belt should be silver anyway. And this mic is freaking pissing me off. 1 second. There we go. I might cut that out, or I might just leave it in, because no one's going to fucking watch this anyway. If you're still here after 9 minutes, kudos to you. Tell me what you think I'm doing wrong and what I can do better for the next one if you're going to subscribe and stick around. And if you're not, well, Fuck you. The middle of the main card, Stephen Thompson, Michel Pereira. That's an interesting fight. Stephen Thompson doesn't have the fucking rankings here. Let's see, UFC welterweight rankings. UFC welterweight rankings. Stephen Thompson, coming fresh off a loss, I believe. Was it to Burns? Was that his last fight? To Holland, sorry. No, he beat Holland last year. And what was a good fun fight, a great fight, Holland could have tried to wrestle him. It could have been a very different fight, but he decided, no, I'm not going to do that. And then he's coming off 2 losses before that to Burns and Bilal Muhammad. And Michel Pereira coming off a win over Santiago Ponzinibbio. He's looked good, Michel Pereira. He's definitely got what it takes to hang at the top of the division. He has done a little bit better with his antics, a little less backflips. And the UFC always does this. Every time Michel Pereira fights, they show a highlight of him doing an illegal strike where he does a backflip, landing on the guy on the bottom's face, which is a kick to a ground opponent. And the UFC puts this up like, look at this crazy guy, I don't know what to expect. It's like, that's fucking illegal, and you didn't do anything about it. And you're showcasing this, which is ridiculous. Okay, we got the welterweight rankings here. My God, what a stacked division. Edwards champion. Is my camera still going? It's just turned off. Fuck you. Okay, we are back. Back in business. Sorry, my my phone just died, and I was recording this on my phone like a true professional. Hopefully in the future we can work on that, but we'll see. We'll see if there's even going to be an episode 2. I'll set the bar at 5 viewers and a comment. Okay, we were looking at the welterweight rankings. Stephen Thompson, number 7. Losses to Bilal, who's number 4, and Gilbert Burns, number 5. And not Shavkat Rakhmonov, Michel Pereira. I can't roll my tongue like that. He is apparently ranked 16th on rankingmma.com, which means he's not ranked because the rankings stop at 15. So he's as good as he can be without being ranked, I guess, is what that means. He's on a 3-fight win streak. Wins over Ponzinibbio, Nico Price, and Andre Filios. Good fighters. It should be fun. They're probably going to stand and bang. And Pereira is only 29. Whereas Wonder Boy, my God, he's going to be pushing 40 now, doesn't he? He's 40. There you go. Will his age catch up to him? I mean, he looked good against Holland, so it's hard to say, but I could see this going either way. Stephen Thompson's $1.62 favorite, but the odds are based on the way people bet, and more people know Thompson, so it makes more sense that people would put money on him because that's just how it goes. I think this is a 50-50 fight, and I think if you were going to take a risk, I'd say put money on Pereira. 2 Pereiras in a row, Michel Pereira and Alex Pereira. Wonder if that's ever happened before. 2 fighters with the same surname back to back. I wonder if that's a good omen, if they're both going to win or they're both going to lose. Something in that. Good fight. We'll see what happens. Moving on to T-Ferg, Tony Ferguson, El Kukui, and Bobby Green. Oh, this one's going to hurt. Bobby Green coming in at $1.24 favorite. Tony Ferguson paying $4.10. He has not looked good in his last couple outings. Ever since Gaethje, he just has not looked good. He looked particularly bad against Nate Diaz. Horrible against Nate Diaz. He made Nate Diaz look good. People love him. I love him. We all love him. But he's got a few screws loose and not in the good way anymore, I think, Tony Ferguson. And not that this is going to be a coming out party for Bobby Green, even if he gets a first round KO, but I don't like Tony's chances. Maybe he does something magical. I'm not sure how good Bobby Green's ground game is. Maybe he can get him there. But then even then, Tony's never had good top game. You know, he did great against Kevin Lee from bottom. He got that triangle, but even then, people forget, even with Tony's wins, when he was on that 11-fight win streak, if you go back and watch them, most of the fights that he won, he took a lot of damage, you know, and then he got a spectacular finish in the end, and that's the highlight you watch. But if you go back and watch him, he ate shots. Kevin Lee, you know, you think, oh yeah, he beat Kevin Lee, but Kevin Lee was hitting big shots with him in that first round, and then he gets caught at the bottom, starts eating elbows, and Tony throws up the triangle. I don't like this at all. I think Tony should retire. He's not going to. He reckons he's got 5 fights and a title shot left in him. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Bobby Green is a dangerous man. He's got good hands, good boxing. He'll walk him down. And Tony looked slow. He looked slow against Diaz, and that was the worst because Tony used to be so quick, and Bobby's still quick, you know. Like, how old is Tony Ferguson now? 39. That was interruption number 2. And we are back for the third time. We were looking at the aged. Tony Ferguson is 39 and he is 59 in CTE years. Bobby Green's 36, so he's not young. He's no spring chicken either. With a record of 29 and 14. Like, Tony is better, technically. But it's just whether his speed is going to be there. I don't know. I don't think this looks good. I think this should be the retirement of Tony Ferguson. If he finds a way to win, good for him. Not good for his brain, because he's just going to keep fighting. But let's be honest, if he loses, he's going to keep fighting. So, let's go Tony. Then, to open the main card, man, this is a good card. Michael Chiesa and Kevin Holland to open it. This is a good main card. What bothers me is that they have to do this silly BMF title because they're so afraid of putting a pay-per-view on without a title. But they've done it before with Conor. Conor versus Cowboy, that had no title. Conor versus Nate, both of them, that had no title. But if it's not Conor, they have to put a silly BMF title on the line to justify it, which is ridiculous because you got guys like Poirier and Gaethje who are big enough names. They're probably not names to the casual. Maybe Poirier because he beat McGregor twice. But, you know, putting this silly little title on the line isn't going to draw a single extra pay-per-view. So just don't do it. Call it a number 1 contender fight. But then they don't want to do that either because then that restricts them to future matchmakings. I don't know. The UFC is fucking silly sometimes. Anyway, Michael Chiesa, Kevin Holland. That's a good fight. Kevin Holland. Let's see. Is he going to implement his wrestling? Probably not. But he's coming in as a favorite. $1.66 to Michael Chiesa, $2.20. Who has Michael Chiesa fought in his most recent fights? Michael Chiesa is 35 years of age. Kevin Holland is 5 years younger, 30. Michael Chiesa coming off. He didn't fight at all last year. I feel like he was booked and it was cancelled. He lost to Sean Brady, but that fight, if it was 3 rounds, if it went 2 more rounds, he was winning. He smashed him in the 3rd round, and if it was, and Brady was done, but he won the first 2 rounds. So he lost that, but he looked really good. He got subbed against Vicente Luque, and he beat Neil Magny last year. I like Chiesa. He's got a weird way of fighting. I think he's super cringe. I just keep coming back to that big press conference UFC did. I think it was him and Kevin Lee, and he was talking about his mum, and he said, "Don't you fucking talk about my mum!" And then he fucking starts swinging at him like, oh god. Anybody who gets that upset about, if you bring someone's mother into it and you just get that wound up, I don't know, just chill out. Like, they're winding you up on purpose. Just chill out. But yeah, good fighter. Don't talk about his mum. I wonder if Kevin Holland will talk about his mum. He likes to talk. He hasn't really been much of a loudmouth in his last few fights, Kevin Holland. He looks like he's taken a bit more seriously since coming down to welterweight from middleweight. And I think he's gonna have a reach advantage, surely. Where's his reach? 2-0. Yeah, he's got a big reach advantage. He's got a 15 centimeter reach advantage, which is like 6 inches, I think. 15 centimeters. I should know how many inches that is. And he's going to be taller as well, so he's going to be the longer fighter, Kevin, and he's probably going to stay back and pop, hit him with the jabs, hit lots of 1-2s. And Chiesa's probably maybe going to try and wrestle him, but that's going to be a good fun fight. A good fun fight to kick off a good pay-per-view. Let's have a look at the prelims. UFC 291 prelims. We've got Derek Lewis on the prelims, fighting Marcos de Lima. That is unusual for Derek Lewis to not be on the main card. I wonder why. They often put a big fight on the prelims on purpose, and people go, "Why is that?" Like, Dominic Cruz was on the prelims of a big card, but it's because ESPN want one of the big fights on the prelims, so people watch it leading up to the pay-per-view. And yeah, that'll be fun, I guess. Probably pretty slow. De Lima's not a very skillful heavyweight. Most of them aren't. But it'll be fun. Hopefully one of them gets knocked out. I'd like to see Lewis do well. Everybody loves him. It's not in Texas, so he'll probably win. Oh, it's at Salt Lake City, isn't it? Oh, they're going to gas. It's at Elevation. The whole card's at Elevation. Which is... Fuck, is that where... It is 1.3 kilometers, the elevation. It is... Well, how high is Mexico City? It's not as elevated as Mexico City, but it is at elevation, which is where I believe Usman v. Edwards 2. Salt Lake City, yeah, it's where the first Usman and Edwards one, where notoriously Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold had the worst fight ever. It was fun, it was entertaining, but they were just so gassed. Everybody on that card gassed out. And it's ridiculous that the UFC keeps putting these fights in elevation. Fuck, everybody's going to gas. I didn't think about that. I wonder how... I have to watch the UFC embedded to see how early certain fighters have got there. But if you're not getting there 3 to 4 weeks beforehand to acclimatize and really train at elevation, you're going to feel it. And if you're not at an elite level of fitness, which even most of them are, but to be, I don't know, like elite, like Usman and Edwards, when they fought the second time, Usman didn't show it. Leon definitely did. he said it affected him as well in interviews. Damn, that's well, this fight card will be better at the Apex. There you go. My goodness. So don't bother watching the Derek Lewis fight expecting a great fight. Maybe a good first round, and if it doesn't go past there, a lot of clinching and laying on each other, I would imagine. Anyone else? No one else really worth talking about on the prelims of the early prelims. Well, I guess that's it for the UFC 291 preview, if you can call it that. It's definitely a lot easier to review rather than preview. Possibly for the next one, I'll do a bit more research. I'll watch specific fights, take notes, and give my thoughts in that regard. But it should be fun. I don't know. I like to try to do these podcasts once a week, maybe Monday or Tuesday. I can preview the upcoming card, and I can review the previous card, because previous to this was Aspinall and Tybura, and I guess we can go through that quickly. Let's go through it. If anybody's still here, let's go through it, which I doubt they are, but hey. If anybody made it to this point in the podcast and is still here, please comment. I made it to the UFC Fight Night in London review. And I'll shout you out next time. How's that? Tommy Aspinall, Martin Tybura. Aspinall KO'd him in a minute 13, as everybody expected. Did we learn anything? We learned that Tom Aspinall's just as good as he was before he tore his ACL. Yeah, that's about it. Everybody expected him to blow straight through him, and he blew straight through him. He called out the winner of Spivak and Garn, and the winner of that fight to fight John Jones. And we'll see. John Jones has got Stipe Miocic, which is booked, which is awesome. It's been a long layoff for Stipe. We'll see how that fight goes. It'll be far. It'll be good. It'll be good. And good on Stipe for getting it. It could be the retirement fight for both fighters, and we're kind of seeing this new breed of heavyweights with Spivak, Aspinall, and with Tybura. I guess Blades, Garn, and my God, who's the other fella that Tommy Aspinall was supposed to fight? It'll come to me. Kill me. It is not there. Well, Pavlovich, that's his name. Pavlovich, they're kind of the new breed of top 5 heavyweights. And we'll see. We'll see. But, I mean, Jones could keep going. He could just run through the heavyweights. He's that good. Tommy Aspinall could give him trouble, but he's so skilled. He's so smart. He's got the highest fight IQ. And yeah. Anyway, good for Tommy Aspinall. Co-main event in what is arguably one of the worst co-main event fights prior to it going on was Molly McCann and Julia Stoliarenko, and she subbed her with an armbar in a minute 55. And poor Molly. She had a lot of pressure on her fighting in London. She has the crowd on her side, and Stoliarenko has one really good weapon, and it's an armbar. And she grabbed the arm, and the cage prevented her from extending it. And Molly was safe if she Gable gripped her fingers. Oh, sorry, not Gable gripped. If she locked her fingers in and circled her hips to the left, she could have. Well, there wouldn't have been any pressure. Maybe Stoliarenko could have swung around, but the one thing she shouldn't have done is roly-poly. And it's exactly what she did, straight into the armbar, and it was terrible. And, yeah, poor Molly. She said she's moving down to strawweight next, and she doesn't look super shredded, so she can. Speaking of super shredded, Paul Craig made his middleweight debut and looked pretty good. He looked fantastic. And Paul Craig, the Scottish man, is, I would say, is one of my favourite fighters. More so because of his personality than his fight style. Because his fight style is hard to watch as a fan. It's him eating shots on the chin, pulling guard and throwing up triangles mostly. But he looked good at middleweight. And he never looked... He wasn't a big light heavyweight, but he was always pretty shredded. He didn't look like it. He wasn't a tubby light heavyweight. So I was surprised when he was going down to middleweight, but he did it. And he looked good. He was throwing kicks at range, the body kick, the right body kick. And he spoke about it in his interview afterwards, or maybe his interview with Ariel Helwani, that was what he planned. And what I really liked about the way he spoke about it, he says we. He kept saying we. We won the fight. We had the game plan and we implemented it, which is great because he looked at it not as an individual but as a team sport. I just thought that was really cool of him. Shout out to Paul Craig. He's also got a great taste in music. If you ever listen to the songs he puts on his Instagram stories, it's great if you like indie rock. You should definitely show me a few bands. But yeah, he looked great and he shot... I think in the first round he shot a double leg, got on top, bit scrambly. I think maybe they got back to the feet. And in the second round, he shot a good double leg, and it's good because he has a good top game. He just never uses it because he's so good from guard, I guess, with his jiu-jitsu background. But he used his top game. He shot a great double leg takedown, and he stayed on top. And he was kind of trying to punch him, and there was no power in the punches. He wasn't posturing up and getting all his weight in. And then he just started throwing elbows, and it worked. And he got the TKO, and good for Paul Craig. He's now ranked 14 in middleweight. And he says he wants to do both light heavyweight and middleweight. So I'm all for it. Up the Scotsman. If you haven't listened to his interview, if you like Paul Craig especially, and you haven't listened to his interview on Morning Combat, listen to it. It is great. He speaks about how it was Mike Perry, of all people, to give him the idea of putting the Braveheart facepaint on, and it is a hilarious story, which culminates with Mike Perry saying, "Go Scotland!" when he sees, "Let's fucking go Scotland!" when he sees Paul Craig wearing it for the first time after he suggested to do it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. He's a very funny man, Paul Craig, and I love him. Good for him getting the win. Well, I guess that'll wrap it up. Yeah, UFC 291 will maybe come back next week if it doesn't take too long to put this together and upload it to YouTube and a podcast app. I don't even know how to do that yet, but I'll figure it out. And maybe just YouTube. There's probably no point putting it on a podcast app. No one's going to listen to it. No one's going to listen to this after UFC 291 because that's how preview shows work. Nobody gives a shit afterwards. Yeah, I doubt anybody stayed to the end. If you did, thank you for listening. I'm probably talking to myself, and that's okay because this is all good practice for getting good at podcasts. So that'll wrap it up from now. I am Fabian Stewart. This is MMA Matt Chat. Please like, comment, subscribe. If anybody made it this far, drop your name. You don't drop your name, just comment anything your name pops up. And I'll shout you out in the next one because that's how small this audience is going to be. And I'll be surprised if there is anyone. If you write something nasty, I won't shout you out. Or maybe I will. But I will shout you down. Who knows? It's been fun. Till next time, I'm out.